Well, we have 6 refrets on the go this week. This is the Gary's Les Paul. We're switching over the type of fret wire, and we'll walk you through this as always. This Hofner is also a complete refret, so the first step is to remove the old frets. Boy, these are uber soft frets, and the tang on these ones is very small. The tang on the Gibson is huge. Combination of bead and tang is 40 thou, so you got a 40 thou tang on those Gibson frets. And these frets are 31 thou, that's tang and bead combined. Very soft alloy. Also a very high arch on this fingerboard. It's almost like a kind of like a Strat or a Tele. Yeah, these were a bit of an oddball guitar, but the customer's absolutely in love with this guitar and has done a lot of sourcing of parts to kind of get it back to original. Of course, these frets, yeah, they're original frets. They're not worth keeping. They're soft as butter. We won't be doing a compensated nut on this one because this has a 0 fret, but there is something I do with 0 fret guitars that helps to compensate, much like a compensated nut, not quite as precise. You don't have control string to string, but it does make a difference, and I'll bring you into the loop on that when we get to that point in this job. Kind of taking a break from those 3 Martin neck resets just to kind of change it up a bit. All 3 of those Martin necks came off beautifully. We'll spend a few days next week getting them all lined up, reinstalled the optimum neck to body angle. We get some extra real estate on those saddles, and the customers can drop the action down to any height they want. So this fret job is a little bit trickier because you got that very fragile binding to kind of work around. And you've seen me do this in other videos. I'll capture it again on video. I also have a Les Paul Custom coming up. Similar challenge where it's got the bound fingerboard, which is definitely a lot more work than just a plain rosewood or ebony fingerboard without binding. Well, I'm kind of taking stock of all these different refrets that are coming up this week. I've got to place another order with Jessica and make sure we got all the right dimensions for all these different models of guitar. This is our next candidate for refret. All these refrets are happening this week. So this is a 1967 ES330 of Michael's, and I've done work on it before. I put a compensated nut fret dress and set it up for him back in the spring. And he's back to get a refret. He wants to go with the EVO frets for longevity. It's basically a family heirloom. This guitar is in amazing condition. As you can see, it's pretty well immaculate. There's some little fine lacquer checks here, but hey, for a 1967, you can expect that. What I have here is just a piece of foam that I've put under that, and this prevents any crash marks into the top. So we don't want that bar sort of crashing down into that lacquer. I've taped the bridge to the bridge pickup. As we're flipping the guitar around and moving it around, none of these pieces fall out. Now these are not plastic. These are bone saddles, which were used. That was vintage spec back then. Just to make sure we don't lose any of those little puppies. Taping that off too. So frets are coming out on this one. One more thing, I want to bring you into the headstock. So this is another note of caution. These press fit cuffs that go into the face of Gibsons from this vintage, they are just press fit, easily lost. I have some leftover foam packaging from the last set of ratio machine heads I installed, and I'm just going to tape that right over top, just so we don't lose any of those small press fit bushings. Now we're ready to pull some frets without worrying about losing all the little bits and pieces. The other refret we're doing is this dot neck ES335 made in Japan, and it is an Epiphone guitar. But man, this isn't like the Epiphones you see nowadays. This is one of the Elite series Japanese Epiphones. Andrew also dropped off his D28 for a neck reset. This one, we're doing a refret because we need to correct that fingerboard at the top end. Like those last three guitars you just saw, frets got to come out first. So we'll deal with this sort of schlock in the machining when we get on the home stretch. Right now we're just going to tuck that away in the case and get those frets out. So this one needs quite a bit of correction at the top end of the fingerboard, and I will sort of bring you into the loop on that one when we get to that stage. Right now we just want to get those frets out. So that's fairly thick too. Not quite as thick as that Les Paul. That was 40 thou. So you can see there's all kinds of fret crown profiles, tang profiles, and you got to make sure you get the right match. So I'll be placing an order for a few more pounds of fret wire this week. So I'm going to tuck this one away now, and we'll get to that 5th refret, or D fret at this point. So this is our last candidate for D fret. Gibson have had a lot more great ideas than bad ones, but this was not a good one. This was referred to as the fretless wonder. I don't know what possessed them to do this, but these frets right out of the gate are like 27 thou. This is another one of those instruments where it's a family heirloom, and they kind of agonized over, you know, getting this fret job done. And finally, I mean, I've done a lot of work for Jonathan over the years, and you know, we had a heart-to-heart and said, you want to play it or do you want to put it in a glass case and worship it? Because these frets are fairly wide, we'll probably go with something that has a similar footprint. These are, yeah, they're 110. So we'll probably go with a 51 by 100 fret on this one. This is an ebony board. You got to be extra careful with the ebony. It's not like rosewood. The frets don't just slip out on the rosewood resin. The ebony tends to be very dry and very prone to chipping. I definitely heat ebony frets every time, whether they're glued in or just a press fit. So that first one came out nice and clean. Now, the combination of the tang and the bead on this fret is 36 thou. When I order that next batch of frets for all these fret jobs, I'll keep that in mind. And when you heat the fret, it becomes more malleable, slightly softer, but as it cools, with the heat you've tempered it so it actually becomes even harder. So the idea is to heat it, remove it while it's malleable, and then move on to the next fret. Even without any type of super glue or adhesive, I heat frets in an ebony fingerboard every time. I'm going to move quickly here, heat it, extract it, and then move to the next fret. Before I make any attempt whatsoever to remove that, because it's coming out, I wanted to point this out. I don't know if Jonathan was aware of that or not. This is going to be heated up just like the frets, so I just wanted to show that first before I remove the nut. Same idea here, that nut is completing the circuit. Heat that up. You know that there's going to be some type of glue there, and not likely wood glue. Oh, that was easy enough. Beautiful. Doesn't get much cleaner than that. This is getting a compensated nut, of course, anyway. Every guitar I've ever done for Jonathan has a compensated nut. I'm going to call it a day because we got a bunch of fretwork on the go tomorrow.